Welcome back, everybody, to our latest episode of the Inside Line podcast, produced by the Snow Sports Industries of America, which happens to be run by my co-host, Nick Sargent. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Good to see you guys.
Great to have you here. I'm extremely fired up for our guest today. Chris Licata joins us. Welcome, Chris.
Hi.
How do we get so lucky? Lucky? Chris is the industry.
We have a bigger name on the other line, and he's in our studio. We are so fired up to have Chris Licata join us today. Many of you know Chris, but today all of us get to have a front row seat to a winter 2026 strategy session with Chris and Nick. We're very excited. Chris is the leader of Tecnica Group, which steers Blizzard, Nordica, and Tecnica. Literally, we're so stoked that you're here.
Rollerblade too.
Oh, okay, awesome. Rollerblade as well. We're going to get into
if we're going to add brands, I just want to throw it in there. What's the Moon Boot connection?
We support all of the Moon Boot back office functions, but the sales and marketing are handled by a sales agent out of New York City that's really focused on the luxury channel. But everything other than product sales and marketing, we manage through Tecnica Group. And also I would add Lova into the portfolio as well, because we now have a new relationship working with Lova, who is also part of the global portfolio.
The one question I get probably the most, who do you know at Moon Boot? And I'm like, different conversation. We're not going there. Anyway, just for clarity, I wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, it used to be, we knew it was ski season when we would get requests for codes and favors for skis. Now it's, can you get us Moon Boots for our family, for our kids? Yeah.
One of the things you wanted to talk about today, and I figured we could just start here because we're going to be weaving all over the place, but I'm reckoning that it's probably a good thing that Peter, after 30 years, hung it up before you stuck Moon Boot over there, right? Like, talk to us a little bit about the timing there.
With Loa, you mean?
Yes, I'd love to hear the story and some of the changes there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Peter is an absolute legend. I mean, to me, an icon in the outdoor category. He has successfully led Loa for 29 years and just, he's a giant. And what's unique about the Lova, so Lova is part of and has been part of the Tecnica Group portfolio for a long time. It's from a global perspective, it's about half of the sales volume of the group. So it's a really important part of the group. So Peter has been leading that. What's been unique about the situation here is that Tecnica Group and the brands of Blizzard, Tecnica, Nordica, Rollerblade that I work with have been run completely independently from Peter's group. And so it was determined that that Loa in general and Loa in the US was a priority area for growth. We felt like we had a lot of opportunity to grow the business. And so sort of coming on the heels of Peter's stepping out of the business, we just announced last month a few things. We had announced in the spring that Lance Taylor, who's an unbelievable leader, was taking over for Peter as the general manager. But we announced last month the decision to close the Connecticut office where Loa has been based for a long time and relocate the Loa headquarters in the U.S. to Salt Lake City, which is, it's bittersweet. We've got an incredible team of people in Connecticut, and it was hard to deliver that news because many of them were not wanting to relocate. That said, we are going to move Loa to Salt Lake City. We'll be opening a new office there in May. Actually, I just signed the lease yesterday on the facility. And under Lance's direction, the business will be, the sales, product, and marketing will be run out of there. Tecnica Group, in a new relationship, will also be supporting many of the operational and financial functions. So Lance and I are going to be working together, which is great.
Awesome.
One of the other benefits of this Salt Lake operation, it's less specific to Loa, is the space that we are going to be moving into is going to have adequate space for our Alpine team. So we're going to have an Alpine showroom and some offices in Salt Lake for our branded Alpine teams to use whenever they need. We are still going to be based in New Hampshire, but we are now planting a flag for our Alpine business in the mountains, which is something that's also important to our business. So it's bittersweet on the LOVA side, but an important part of the formula for growth is to be closer to the mountains, to where the athletes are, the terrain is, and then we get to be a part of that also on the Alpine side, but with having the showrooms in the office there as well.
Thank you. That's awesome. I love to hear updates like that. And the formula is managing change, which is such a perfect point for us to launch off of today. So I'm going to go ahead and ask our first question, Nick. We go back and forth on this.
Go to work.
Can you tell us how you found your way on snow, Chris?
Yeah. I started skiing, I don't know, I think I was in 4th or 5th grade. And I simply just, I just fell in love with it. I was just recently telling the story about being the kid in middle school that when I wasn't sort of preoccupied with after school sports, I was the kid who would ride my bike with my buddy Kevin to the local ski shop where I grew up and just hang out all afternoon at the ski shop. And granted, this is a long time ago, but listening to the sales guys hone their pitch. And, I just loved hearing about the new gear and smelling the P-Tex wafting from the back room and trying on the clothes and just being a part of it. And so for early on, once I got my first experience on snow, I knew it was something that was going to stay with me. And it did. It did, to the point where, I stayed committed to the sport through college. I played lacrosse in college. So other than lacrosse, skiing was a big part of my deal. And when I graduated, I knew that I absolutely was not cut out for corporate life. I was a rebellious kid. I got in a fair amount of trouble. I knew I was not going to survive wearing a suit or working in the insurance industry where my parents lived. And so I did the only reasonable thing a college student would do. I was coaching high school lacrosse and started working in the ski shop that I started spending all my time in when I was in middle school. And that led to, running my own store. And then kind of the rep journey continued. I got hired by Salomon in 1990, and sort of that launched my career over the last however many, almost 4 decades of just sort of, doing different things within the industry with some amazing people and some really, really strong brands.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, that is a story. That's, at least from our generation, that's where we've all kind of started one way or another. And the ski shop was such an important part of the equation, where you saw the new stuff and you could smell the down and the P-Tex, to your point, which I think I got the same waft of that and was like, oh, man, count me in. But you've been, you almost have like this storied career where shop kid, rep, big French company, sales director, vice president of sales. You've been in that space for a long time. And then from Salomon, it led you to Dynastar and Lang. And our paths certainly passed a number of times in those roles, which has been fun. But really what I'm excited to hear about is the departure from the ski industry into the organic food space. And then maybe I'm going to get ahead of myself, and then back to winter sport.
Yeah, it was a left turn for sure. Maybe for context. So when I was at Salomon, toward the end of my 12 years there, we had been acquired by Adidas, which was a really exciting time. And an incredible opportunity to be part of an acquisition, an integration, and then a relocation. And so I had made the move to Portland. I was living in New Hampshire at the time. I stayed out in Portland for 3 years or so. I had met my wife just before I moved out there, and our families were back east. So we eventually made the decision to move back east The plan was to have to take a year off, have the 100-day season, and surf and ski and do all the things that I like to do. But upon coming back east, we discovered that my wife was pregnant with twins, and so it felt like a responsible time to go back to work, which is when I went to Dynastar. And a few years after my time as president of Dynastar, went through another acquisition, integration, and relocation. This time, Quicksilver had acquired the Rosignol Group, which included, Dynastar, Lang, Look, as well as the Rosignol brand, as well as Cleveland Golf. And after having just gone through that a few years earlier, and for anybody that's been a part of that, that that's a lot of work that's really not focused on the business and growing the business. It was operationally important work, but it was exhausting. So it led to the decision that we made at the time, which was to relocate Rosignol and Dynastar from Vermont to Park City. And at that point, my kids were young. I think they were two or three. And we had just moved back east and didn't want to relocate to Park City. So looked around. I felt like it was a good time for me to take a break. Like I said, after two acquisitions and all that came with it. It just felt like a time to maybe step away, and had some opportunities in the ski business and the bike business. But sort of asked myself this question of when are you ever going to get a chance to reinvent yourself? And maybe now is the time to explore that. So at the time, my kids, by the time I left Dynastar, my kids were 3. I have twin daughters that are now 22 years old. But, and at the time we had been having a hard time finding food that we wanted to feed them. And this is in the mid 2000s, and the organic food thing was certainly a thing, but not like it is today. And we had a food company in the family. My wife's parents ran a turkey farm, and then very much a mom and pop chicken and turkey pot pie operation, selling their pies to 250 or so retailers in 4 of the New England states. And so Amy and I got to talking about what would happen if we could re-envision what this food company could look like and test this theory about, would people pay more for organic versions of the comfort food favorites that we grew up on: chicken pot pie, shepherd's pie, mac and cheese, things like that. And so we kind of took a flyer. We cut my pay basically to nothing. We relocated ourselves back to New Hampshire and immersed myself in this business that I knew nothing about. We owned our own production facility. It was a USDA facility. And I had visions of really testing the waters in the natural and organic food space. So we got our facility certified organic, which was a long process. It meant that I had to ask a lot of questions. I had to learn really quickly. But eventually we brought our first products to market and spent the first 4 years developing Blake's into, I would say, a brand within really hardcore the natural channel. And we had great results. The thesis was working. People were paying more for it, and our velocities were good, our turns were good in these small independent stores, and so that gave us the I would say the inclination and the rationale to try to expand even broader. We launched an adjacent line of natural products versus organic products that we could actually sell to the 30,000 stores that actually sell food in volume. And and for 10 years, we built that brand, and we ultimately sold it to a Fortune 100 company in 2015. And that was part of what led me back to the ski industry.
I love that story. That is something I've interviewed a lot of people in my day, and I can't say I've ever sat with an executive that it's had such a 360 change. Saw it to, cross the line, which is a huge accomplishment in and of itself, taking it from a distribution of 250 mom and pops to selling to a Fortune 100. I mean, hats off. That is pretty proud.
Yeah, when we sold, we were So we went from about 250 stores to 11,000 when we sold. And I don't know if it was all 50 states, but it was darn close. And it was fun. And I got to do it with my family, which was the best part. My kids got to see me working with their grandparents. We would often say the kitchen table is also the conference table because we were talking about work all the time. And it was cool. It was an incredible opportunity and a great experience. I learned so much from that experience.
Bingo. And then you decide, I think I want to go back to the ski industry. I think I want to go to winter sport. I'm not done with this yet. So tell me about lessons learned, lessons brought forward, and and how you apply that to your day job today.
So many lessons. I would say the first lesson for sure was humility. I left my native industry. I'd been in the ski industry since I graduated from college. And I knew, I didn't know everything, but it was, I had 20 years. And when you step into a world like food, it's such a massive, predatory, industry, and I didn't know anything. And we owned a production facility, and I didn't know anything at the time about how to produce food safely and so forth. So the humility of having to ask a lot of people for help to get me up to speed as quickly as possible was different. You're a small brand. People don't return your calls when you're a small brand. And I think when you work for big brands, you often forget that the legacy and reputation of those brands is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And it's not that your contribution isn't important, but when you're growing a small brand, there are fewer chances for missteps because you're still in the process of establishing trust with consumers or employees or whoever. Over the time there, it taught me the value in putting in the work, really doing the work that maybe I hadn't done in years, like responding to consumer emails, or some things that maybe I hadn't even done at all. And when I got to Blake's, there was no phone system, no website, there was nothing. And so it was really a lesson in, just doing the work that needed to get done. And so this humility that was necessary was a part of it. I also sort of realized the value of, I had not really been an entrepreneur before, like a true entrepreneur, like signing the front of the check and not the back of the check. And, when as an entrepreneur, the first lesson that I learned was, the highs are high, but the lows are lows, and the lows can be much more consequential at a small company than a large one because the margin for error is so thin. A low could be having your bank line pulled, which leads to a whole nother set of decisions that you need to be made. And so just this idea of staying in balance, not letting your mindset shift with those highs and lows is really critical because people are watching, your employees are watching, your retail partners are watching, your sales teams are watching, et cetera.
Yeah. That alone is not only inspiring, but just, amazing experience. And I have to wonder, today, as you're working for one of the largest still family owned companies in the world, how does that, experience your leadership transition to when you're working with as an out of family, in your day job? And it's got to give you one, some appreciation, but two, also, I think I've got a different way of thinking that I learned in my last experience.
Yeah, for sure. Going through that experience of, again, front of the check versus the back of the check, what you're signing, like the money as an entrepreneur, the money is your money. It's not a faceless, organization's money. Right. And so, I have a close relationship with the Zanata family, and I have such incredible appreciation and respect for what Giancarlo built way back when. But they are a family business, just like we were a family business. And I have so much respect for, not only what Giancarlo started, but where Alberto has taken the business since then. Their family members are involved, and I think that's really cool and it's really special. I think the one thing that's really cool, and although the Blake's business is not quite the size of the Tecnica Group business, the coolest part about a family business, and in the context of skiing, it's amazing, is that, when you're privately owned and family run, it gives you the ability to be situationally irrational, right? You can do what you want if it's in the long-term best interest of your business, your brands, or your people. And when you're, a publicly traded company reporting to a board that may or may not be completely tuned in, I think the decision-making process might be a little different. So I think my experience as an entrepreneur, as a family-owned business, gives me even more appreciation for what the Zanatas have done and continue to do. And in a world today, I think Tecnica Group has got to be one of the last truly family-owned ski industry hard goods companies out there. And so I couldn't be more proud to be a part of the team and sort of continue what they've started.
That's an incredible, they're very lucky to have you. That's a very incredible and unique mindset. So many things that you've said so far, they all kind of go back to reinvention, which is something that you brought up early on in your stories here today. And I'd love to hear, how does the family rely on you to continually reinvent these beautiful brands?
Well, I'm only a small part of the reinvention. I'm, as a part of the global leadership team. It's nice that they trust what I have to say, not just about how things are going here, but also how things are going outside of just the walls of North America. We're not just me, but our team here is really heavily invested in the strategy with the brands. There's an incredible level of trust that the team in Europe has in our teams here, whether it's the people that run our brands or it's the people that run our operations or finance. It's really the most unique relationship I've been a part of in my, 30 or 40 years of doing this, to see that level of trust and that level of transparency, that level of curiosity about how we do things here and how that might maybe help other parts of the world. But I'd say that the secret sauce for sure is the trust that has been earned over time. Our product teams, we refer to it as a borderless organization, where you're going to start to see global strategy on the products that are key to North America, the global strategy being driven from here because we're selling, wider skis as an example, and they trust us to get it right. We're developing graphics for a lot of our skis here. And that's the level of trust that we've established with the development units in Italy. So it's just, I would say, all coming back to this perennially entrepreneurial mindset. It really does lend itself to breaking some of the rules that often exist between a parent company and a subsidiary.
And I have to imagine, having worked for a private company myself in the past, there's so many advantages between private versus public, and the opportunities that you're able to take, and the responsibility of addressing, demographic shifts, but also the future of especially retail, direct to consumer. All of those strategies are happening in front of us. And, how are you kind of harnessing that opportunity to push the brand forward, being private versus public?
I think the first thing, it goes back to what I said about, I'm being a little bit sarcastic when I say situationally irrational, but it does give us the ability to have more longer term conversations, right? I think in a public company environment, you are living, let's say, quarter to quarter, and you're having to, your motivations might be a little bit different. The benefit that I've seen with our company here in North America, as well as globally, is there's a balanced approach. Of course, we have a responsibility to be profitable and run a good, disciplined business, which we do. But when you have owners that you can engage in a conversation about why we might take tariffs is a good example. If we were a public company, we might have taken a little bit different position on how we manage the tariffs. But because I was able to have a conversation with Alberto and with Andrea Doriga, who's our new global CEO, who is phenomenal. I mean, just an incredible leader for the company globally. We were able to take a little bit more of a long-term view of what we wanted to do. So I think it's this idea of playing the long game, and having our decisions really be in the best long-term interest, like I said, of our business, of our brands, but also of our people, like trying to always make sure that we're doing the right thing for our people. And I think, I don't know if it was Kristin or Nick asked me like what the secret sauce was or something. And I would say, truly the secret sauce is the ability to keep this incredible team that we have here in North America. I mean, we just came from a company event and we celebrated several people that were 25 years with us. We have somebody that's over 45 years. We have plenty of people that are between 30 and 40 years. And it does go back to, one of the priorities for us, which is, we need to make sure that we're providing as awesome a place to work as we can. And it's definitely not perfect, for sure. But we pay close attention to it. And again, I think that's a byproduct of, of the ownership structure and the philosophy that we have around really what success looks like. And it's not solely defined by, the bottom line.
I don't understand how specialty brands can be solely defined by the bottom line. And that also leads us to specialty retail. And I can only imagine building your past company, Blake's, from the retail base that you started with to what it had. I would love to ask you about your opinion around how important retail is today to growth of your brands and brand engagement. Coming from, Blake's, where you built a much larger retail base, I know this must be a priority for you in terms of telling the story of your brand and sharing its experience.
Yeah, I think, on the food front, I did learn a lot that there's quite a bit different there than in the ski specialty world. Mostly because the products are turning, units per store per week. They're turning very quickly. You're getting immediate feedback about your food or your packaging or whatever it is. And so, the stakes are pretty high because it doesn't take much to put a brand in jeopardy or to have a brand accelerate. But the turns are high in the ski world, and the environment that your product sits in is really important as well. In specialty ski, I just think that specialty retail is absolutely vital to this long-term success of our sport. I hate seeing that we're losing specialty retailers. I was a specialty retailer. I grew up as a retailer before I became a rep. And I believe the best experiences are had in specialty stores. There are certainly accounts that are doing a nice job online, but to me, specialty is the lifeblood of our industry. And as from a work perspective, we say that all the time. We want to support specialty as best we can. We say all the time from a Tecnica group perspective to specialty, judge us not by what we say, judge us by what we do. And we try to always do the right thing by specialty retail because it's critical. And then I go back to my experience as an entrepreneur. Before I went to Blake's, I didn't really know what it meant to own your own business. I didn't know what it meant to, deal with a bank. I didn't know what it felt like to sign a personal guarantee. I didn't know what it felt like to have bad years, to potentially have your line called, all of those things. And, I have even more respect and appreciation for specialty retailers with what they have to do, because for 10 years, I got a window into that. And I'm a huge fan of specialty. And, as a group perspective here at Tecnica Group, we want to do as much as we can to make sure that specialty is evolving as consumer behavior is evolving.
One of my favorite things that you've said so far today is really the borderless organization. And as a board member, I know you and Nick and the team talk a lot about how small the world is today. And I would love for you to maybe expound a little bit on how you built a trust-based relationship with the owners that you're representing here in terms of getting them to really understand and care about where the market's going. If you have anything you can share that might help other brands mend that, bridge, if you will, or build a stronger one, that would be super helpful.
Well, for sure it is a byproduct of the team. I mean, I'm one small part of it, but our team has really close relationships that have been built, I think, simply by doing what we say we were going to do. And I also think, to the credit of the team in Europe, they have a deep curiosity about, why North America is different, why the U.S. is different, why Canada is different. And I think it's important that parent companies have that innate curiosity, really understanding not just what skis people are buying, but what are the technology solutions that might be appropriate in the U.S. that maybe are different in Europe, or some of the other operational things. But I do think it takes a curiosity on the parent company side. I do think it takes subsidiaries doing what they say that they're going to do, and yeah, just sort of honoring the relationship that exists between a sub and a parent company. But it takes time. And we're just so fortunate. Again, we have tenured folks here that have had deep relationships with people in Europe at the factory level, on the marketing level, on the brand side. And over time, that trust has been built both ways. And yeah, like I said, our business is strong, I think, because of the quality of those relationships, the authenticity of those relationships. And it shows up in the trust. Then the fact that we're developing graphics here, we're developing marketing campaigns now here or the rest of the world. It shows that it can work if that trust exists.
That trust is really bound by the leadership that's driven by a person in your role, the culture that you have curated and you've certainly added to, and then certainly, looking at how you balance, work and life, not only professionally with your employees that have been there for 35, 40 years plus, but then also, how you're leading your work-life balance personally. So how does that approach help you when you're getting to your desk first thing on a Monday morning and you're thinking about the week ahead of you and the people that you're responsible for?
Well, I would start by saying, the Tecnica Group is not the perfect place to work, but we try really hard to make it as good as it can be. We've got our director of people and culture is outstanding. I mean, she's just phenomenal. Her name's Emma. And what we've been able to do is we've been able to, from an employee standpoint, we were able to sort of renovate a program that we had introduced right before COVID that we refer to as E3, which stands for Elevate the Employee Experience. Those are the 3 E's. And within E3, we sort of put everything underneath it, everything that's focused around building what we refer to as an intentional community here, like recognizing that unless you're intentional, you don't come together. Unless you're intentional, you don't spend money on the things that are focused on around the employees. And so we try to be really intentional with the time and the resources that we apply to it. And so we have this sort of framework under E3, and it's focused on connection, growth, passion, and purpose. And we've got programming under each of those things to make sure that we're always talking in the context of those 4 things, whether it's how we do performance reviews or whether we have professional development plans for people, whether we're supporting what we call purpose beyond profit, which is cause marketing initiatives, things like that. And so from a work standpoint, we just try to make sure that as a leadership team here, we have a 7-person leadership team, that we're really sort of obsessive about, trying to make it as good a place as it can be. We do annual employee sentiment surveys, and which are generally good, not perfect, and it always gives us stuff that we need to go back and try to work on. But we're talking about it all the time.
So culture could literally be seen as one of the keys, I think, to running like this dynamic business with multiple brands. And I think where you put your energy is where you see growth. And to me, it's all about people, everything you say.
Yeah, I think so. And so, and things are different these days than they were, 4 or 5 years ago. What employees want out of their experience at work is a little bit different. And so we've had to change some stuff over the years. But it's all, we've got an incredible team. I say it all the time. Our team is phenomenal to a person. Doesn't matter their role or tenure within the organization. everybody comes to work every day and works their butt off. So it's fun to find ways to support the team, whether it's through, flexible work schedules or summer hours, or, we just introduced a work from anywhere program where people can go, they sort of apply for this, but people could go and work anywhere in the world for a month, given some parameters, obviously, but just trying to make sure that we're operating a modern business. We've got a lot of young folks here, which I'm super proud of. The fact that we've been able to retain just these incredible high performers at a young age, and we need to be responsive to what they want out of their experience. Working at Tecnica Group too, so constantly moving. It's a constant work in progress, but it's something that it's the center of the bullseye for us, for sure.
From the outside looking in, it's easy for me to sit here, in Park City, but it looks and appears like a great place to work. And certainly we're promoting fun. We're in the business of fun. And, the way that you've been able to translate that into the work environment, I'm sure goes a long way, and your employees are stoked. Hence by the fact that they've been there for 30, 40, 50 years.
They are the most important mouthpieces of your brands, period. And I guess when you think about it that way, they must help you, especially with a youthful culture and a youthful team that you have, connect with consumers. And that is something that Nick and I have been talking about, like as we were preparing for your show, is you're a salesperson, a really successful one. And so there's a consumer connection, and then there's sales, and there's a little bit of like a transactional haze on that word, but sales ultimately makes the world go round. And we would love to know if you have any thoughtful approaches that are more consumer centric than transactional around growing sales. That to me is kind of the question I think everyone would love to ask you.
I think for all of our brands, and I would put Rollerblade in there, I would put Lova in there for sure. But speaking specifically about the Alpine brands, I think the secret sauce for any brand, not just ours, is authentic connection, that you're talking skier to skier. You're not, marketing to them. I'll give you an example. Is just this morning, we launched a brand new category of skis called Canvas with Blizzard. But the way that our team, so it's a global launch, everything had been initiated and created here in the US. And we launched this morning, and I think as of about an hour ago, we've already sold out of some of the first wave of skis. But it was the way that we had launched it. It was sort of this skier to skier mindset. The way that we communicated the development of this ski resonated with the target audience for this ski. And I think, we try to think less transactionally about let's get a skier this year. We want to attract people to the brand. And I think it is this evolution from marketing products to marketing brands. Brands are what ensures that you could theoretically have a lifelong consumer versus selling them a product 1 year, whether it's a ski or a boot or whatever, and have them move on the years later. So for the Alpine brands, for sure, the focus is on sort of, deep, authentic storytelling that really resonates. So people get attracted to the brand, and then ultimately, hopefully will buy one of our products. But that for us is kind of the secret to building, to developing our business and retaining the consumers that we have, and hopefully attracting a lot more with the storytelling that we do and the way that we communicate about our products and our people and our, and our brands.
That is a beautiful answer. And one thing I love about it most, again, you can tell that you are just a disciple of specialty, Chris, and it's so wonderful to have you here to kind of share that vision from a position of success. And there's so much around demand generation, and what you're talking about is capturing the hearts of the consumer, enabling them to believe something about themselves in their mind when they're using your product and belonging to your brand community. And I'm venturing to guess that is probably a lever that you're going to pull and use in the next 3 to 5 years, because the market just continues to change. And I think that's going to help you really punch above the noise.
Yeah, I think the way that we think about it is, we're in a period of uncertainty for sure, but we want to be playing offense right now. And we think that there's this powerful combination of maybe investment and focus, which is going to be transformative for this next 3 to 5 year period. But for us, it is all about clarifying the unique brand positioning, and having the products, be the reflection of that brand positioning. But yeah, so we're increasing our investment and we're increasing our focus on telling, authentic stories that truly connect with consumers. They truly connect with retailers, and it feels authentic. It feels real because we are, our brands are as authentic as they come. Our ownership is authentic as they come, and we've got a great story to tell, and our focus is going to be on telling that story.
I'd love to kind of wind up the interview by asking both of you, and maybe you can even talk together about this, but you're both, leading the industry from the board level. What do you think might be the top 2 things to change around the industry in order to get to growth that's sustainable?
Well, I mean, for me, the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges that we have right now is sort of this good news, bad news story that we see with the participation data. I mean, the visitation is up. Like, what's great is that the people that are skiing more, but over the last 8 years, we've lost more than 1.5 million skiers. So we're losing skiers. And so I think about, the challenge for me, the challenge as I see it, is trying to make sure that we can attract more people into the sport. And the barriers, unfortunately, the barriers are maybe a little bit higher than they need to be. So we have a great ski area down the road from where our office is called Whaleback, which does an incredible job getting people on snow, but it's a small hill. It's extremely weather dependent. Pat's Peak is another one, which does an incredible job. It's a small ski area in New Hampshire, but does an incredible job of finding ways to affordably get people on the snow. But it still feels like it is a challenge to introduce the sport to more people. And I love to see that we just had the second highest visitation rate for skier visits in recent memory, but we're still losing skiers, and we need to find a way to welcome more people into the sport.
Participation is, that's really what we talk about at the board level. And, we talk about just making the sport more welcome. But, and it's easy to focus on the expense, and it's easy to focus on, everyone's got a story of how expensive a hamburger was. But in that same conversation, most people have the same story that Chris was just mentioning about a Whaleback, a Pat's Peak, a Smuggler's Notch, a Cochrane's, a Burke Mountain, Vermont, where it's affordable within reason, So there is access to the sport if you choose. I think the issue that we really are seeing is this industry is evolving. We're competing for our consumers' time. We're competing for their money. We're competing for lifestyle. And we've been so consumed in lifestyle, and we all live it, all three of us, one way or another. This is the path we've chosen. But and getting more people into that lifestyle and getting into these areas where they feel like it's a place where they want to share and they want to invest is really important. But
and the noise,
you really nailed it. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The noise is greater, I think, than it's ever been. Nick and I were talking yesterday just about, just take club sports or team sports alone. There's been such a movement for families towards those sports that are, in many cases, are year round. And so those are competing dollars, competing time priorities. I do think that, there's something to be learned from other industries, and I can't help but reflect on the surf industry. They just put a wave pool in Virginia Beach, and just the opportunity for people that might be intimidated to go into the ocean, maybe less intimidated to go take a lesson at a wave pool where you can program the wave for what you want, but it's an easy, affordable way into the sport. And I do think there's a lot of places like Whaleback and Pat's Peak and the places that Nick mentioned that do an amazing job. Just feel like, yeah, we need more of them, or we need more affordable skiing from the places that that we hear a little bit more about.
I mean, we've seen dry slope in other parts of the world. We've seen indoor skiing in other parts of the world. And now to Chris's point, we're seeing wave pools close to the beach, which is ironic, or we're seeing wave pools in the middle of Texas. So I think the reality is that whether we're here or not, people are still going to be skiing long beyond our time. People love skiing. They love that freedom. They love that wind in their face. We need to make it more affordable. We need to think about skiing from a 12-month perspective rather than a 3 to 4 month perspective. We need to move away from Thanksgiving to Easter, and maybe Easter to Thanksgiving, and look at it from that perspective to get people comfortable on slope, whether that's carpet, plastic, whether that's, manufactured. So I think we have those opportunities to look at that, and we can take lessons from other parts of the world, whether it's Norway or China, or I'm still struggling. When my kids were ski racing, I was sending them to Lithuania to ski indoor, of all places in the world, Lithuania. But anyway, we can learn as a region, as an industry, and really work towards making it fun, affordable, and helping the next generation blossom.
The theme of this is trust. The theme of this entire conversation. I mean, you've talked about it in so many ways, Chris, but that's also the currency working with consumers today. It's not attention anymore. It's building trust at every opportunity you can. So thinking about what you taught us around culture, relationships, and doing the right thing, and applying that to trust and bringing new people in and kind of meeting them where they are, I think is such an incredible takeaway. And I just really want to thank you for this insightful and fun conversation. I knew it was going to be a good one. I learned a ton. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today.